it's a constant source of one joke after another, be it cringe, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
They are an audience to stop. About the Reels phase is that so many people popped up that I stopped being a target. I was like, happada.
Your vibe mame, your
நீ இந்த
Raja
மாதிரிலாம்
Volan.
see, இந்த மாதிரிலாம் ஏத்தி விட்டு அடுத்தப்பறம்
Alright guys, what's up? Welcome to TIGPODS. It is fucking amazing guest, and that is none other than Nicketronics, aka Guru Nicketen. I should do the other way around.
Other way around.
My bad. So I usually made this mistake, Macha, but I just kept talking and I didn't let the guests introduce themselves. I'm not going to make this mistake this time. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
I thought that was your job as the host.
Shit! This is why I do it every time. So I'll do one thing. I will give you hints and then you develop on the hints. Better?
Sorry, okay. I mean, like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Yeah, why not?
Okay, cool. So, Guruji, what's your main career? How do you describe yourself in like a short bio types?
I am a marketer. I'm a content marketer.
Mm-hmm.
I work in B2B SaaS.
Oh, okay.
I think that is my full-time job and that pays me the most. So I think that has to be my primary career. And I am a stand-up comedian and content creator and
Nice.
aspiring writer.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So you are obviously popular on social media as Nicketronics.
Am I though?
You are.
Okay.
Everybody knows about your memes. I think you are the sole authority when it comes to memes, or rather original memes. Obviously, you know, a meme maker with a face, rather, as opposed to your Dank Tagapan, your Vibe Mame, your Raja Volan.
Yeah, see, Eric Satyama, like, I have no idea who these guys are and like, I hope they're doing well. இந்த மாதிரிலாம் ஏத்தி விட்டு அடுத்தப்பறம் yeah dude, you're inviting, like, you're sending trolls my way. போதும் அந்த ஸ்டேஜ்ல நான் கிராஸ் பண்ணியாச்சு.
Okay.
I think the one thing that I love about the Reels phase is that so many people popped up that I stopped being a target. I was like, happada. Not that it bothered me, but after that I was just like, okay.
You know what? I'm done. My time has ended, but now I'm just like, okay.
Now I can just settle back into the background. I can do my shit whenever I want to do it, and then I can make my money, and then just have nothing to do with it later.
Nice. I love all these points. I'm going to deep dive into all of them as we're getting into it.
Yep.
So, are we missing out anything else about you, Guruji? You are obviously, wow, it's so weird when I call you Guruji.
Yeah,
have your friends not addressed that, like calling you Guruji?
No,
is
I
like,
think it's the evolution of that name, right? So my best friend in 5th grade, his name was Atharva. So he started calling me G. And my mom overheard him calling me that, and he's like, "Oh damn, this is such a nice nickname." And then like the nickname just stuck.
Guruji, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Guru, like it was just G, not Guruji.
Oh, okay.
Right. So the reason I named my Instagram that was because I used to read all these Wikipedia pages, right? So for example, Brendan McCullum is called Brendan Barry Baz McCullum. So essentially the nickname is in quotes.
Okay.
So I think I changed my name to that on my private Instagram back in 2015, and like I just joined a new school then, and then people were just like
Which school?
It was Kola Perumal.
Which one?
Kola Perumal.
Kola Perumal. Okay.
Yeah, so it's
okay.
it's
Kola Urunda Kelipotrukken. Kola Perumal is new. Nice.
Basically, yeah. So people just assumed that, okay, Guruji na, okay, maybe he means that abdin solta, and but teachers started calling me that. So yeah.
So they went the entire Guruji route.
Yeah.
Because of Kola Perumal.
Yeah.
Wow.
That point I was like a teenager. I was like, oh fuck,
I'm
this is cool.
but
I'm like
life, right? I guess life in
Yeah.
one sentence is just that. Nice, bro. So talk to us about your journey through Instagram, bro. Like, take me through the first ever time you put out a post and like when you decided to go public and the journey through that, all of it. It's an amazing story. I'd love to hear it.
I started performing stand-up comedy when I was in 12th grade. Like this was back in 2016.
Oh, okay.
So I think it was again just me wanting to explore, and like, that was when I realized that Chennai had an open mic scene, because until then I just thought, you know, there are these guys that climb on stage, do their material. I didn't even know the jokes were written and all of that.
Okay, you just thought they were naturally funny.
Yeah. It's just like, yeah, they had a topic, they just go on stage, they just wing it. Like that was what. But like obviously, and then I had an inkling, but like I thought, okay, maybe I'll write my jokes down, and then that's how I got started in stand-up, right? I initially started going to all these all arts open mics. So it used to be a bunch of performers, like, you know, poets and musicians and comedians, storytellers, all of them participating together. And then I discovered comedy open mics. Comedy open mics, essentially you just have a lineup of 8 to 10 comics, all of them just trying and testing their material out. So and I started going, like, hitting the open mics regularly. And I did my first paid show in 2017. February 2017, if I'm not wrong.
6 years ago.
Yeah. Oh,
Nice.
fuck, man.
Yeah,
that
bro.
puts a lot of things into perspective. So finally, I performed at Bay 146.
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
just turned 18.
You did your first show at 18.
Yeah, I had just turned 18.
Wow, okay.
And I took my best friend along, and he was born in 2000. So at that point, he was just 16, right?
Wow.
Technically, we weren't even legally allowed to be in the venue at Bay
Yeah,
146
yeah.
in Savera. But I just started getting shows, and I was like, oh, because until then, it was more like a hobby, right? Like
Mhm.
it was more like, the way some people play cricket or play the guitar.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's how I saw it. And like when this happened, I was like, oh damn, okay, maybe this could become something,
Mm-hmm.
And I used to post the links, like the Book My
To
Show
your
links
shows,
to
yeah.
on my Instagram.
Were you
And
still a private account at that point?
yeah, it was still a private account.
Okay.
So it used to jump around between 200, 300 odd followers I had. And
Uh-huh.
at one point, so like this is what I was told in the beginning, like, and this is something that comedians follow as a norm. Like obviously, stand up is a medium that's best enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't afford to put your material out. Like first of all, it has to be funny, and for it to be funny, you have to test it out, and then maybe land on 5 minutes, and you have to take those 5 minutes to a show, and not not just record a video and put it
To
out.
your
Because
friends,
then, yeah. So and at one point, I thought, hey, this is going on one side.
Mm-hmm.
And funnily enough, someone just mentioned, I used to do a lot of these shit posts on Facebook, right? I used to post puns
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and all of that.
Wait, were you the pun guy back in Facebook?
No, that wasn't
Okay,
me. That was
cool.
me. I think so. Page called Smart Ayer Boy back in 2014 on Facebook.
Smart Ayer Boy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And for me, I look at it and I acknowledge how problematic it is. But I mean, just putting it out there. But it's also, back then, that was probably the only sort of Tamil meme representation you saw on like a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
know.
like I was in 10th grade and I just DM'd the admins and I was like, you know what, like, hey, can I be a part of this? And then I just sent in like a couple of memes. Like, you know what, climb on board was what they said.
That's it, just like that.
Yeah, and it was pretty popular on Facebook back then. So I was reminded of that from a conversation with a friend. And I was like, oh, fuck. Okay, now why not just try doing this again? Obviously, there were a lot of pages on Facebook and Instagram wasn't as popular.
Yeah.
say,
Instagram
2017.
Yeah. It was
18.
like that one random one for models, I guess, or like chicks. That was all Instagram was.
Two things happened, right? Like now, in hindsight, I can talk about how, like now that I work at startups, back then, without realizing, I was like, looking at capitalizing on trends early on and all of that. Now, so I saw that a lot of the people in my circle were becoming early adopters, for the lack of a better word, of Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Facebook is already too populated. Let me start something on Instagram. Let it be public. Because one more thing was, a lot of people were getting annoyed by my constant posting of, like, I used to take screenshots of my Facebook post and I used to post it on Instagram.
Yeah. You were that guy.
A lot of people were getting annoyed because it was a mix of things. Right?
What is there for them to get annoyed, bro? I don't get it.
I don't know, man. Like, but I was like 17, 18, and I was like, oh, damn, I can't piss people off.
Okay.
So, like, because at that age, all you want to be is a people pleaser. So,
yeah, sure.
I mean, I wasn't.
Or you're
cool
the
boy,
other
like,
end of the spectrum where you're like, I want to fuck everybody. I'm like, screw this.
I
don't
definitely
care.
wasn't that guy. So,
Okay.
and it also made a lot more sense. It was just like there was no lead up to this, right? It was just like a bunch of random things put together. So, I was watching The Social Network one evening.
Okay.
And so they have a conversation about how Facebook has to be expanded to other places, because if it's just limited to like a certain number of people, it's just going to bounce around the same people and it's going to stay there. And I was like, oh, fuck, this is what's happening with my ticket sales.
Wow, okay.
So I was like, you know what, might as well just open something up and like make it public so that it reaches people.
That it took Mark Zuckerberg, or not even Mark Zuckerberg, it took an Andrew Garfield to tell you that you need to make your profile public.
I mean, yeah, like
Nice.
I didn't have anybody around me telling. I was a bit of a loner back then. So
Okay.
I mean, of course, I did have like my close set of friends, but most of them at that point were focusing on their studies and all of that. Like even so, I just thought, okay, let me give this a shot. My content in the beginning was very basic, very, very like it still is, I would say, like, because that's bare minimum. That's what I'm willing to do at this point. But
Okay.
I would say, and then somehow,
So how did it pop? Like, when did you have your first poof?
so I think it happened in 2 stages, right? So initially, to find that first micro community, there were like other Instagram meme pages. I think it was just like a collaborative effort and like just shout out between.
Oh, okay. So it was a gradual process. There was
Yeah,
no that
so-
one peak.
So yeah, so I think that helped me get to like say like the 3-digit, 4-digit mark,
Okay.
like reaching 1,000 and like
Yeah,
2,000
yeah,
and 3,000 and then 4,000. So I started in August 2017 with my public page, and May, June, say something like around March or April, I was at say like 4K, 5K இருக்கும்.
Okay.
And then slowly it was a slow growth. And then at this point, Akash Iyer, who worked at
Yeah,
BuzzFeed,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and Arshad, who like we went on to become very good friends later. So these guys, they discovered my content, and like Akash just shared one of my posts. I wake up and I see like followers just popping.
This was after Akash became viral with his Rick and
Yeah,
Morty
this was
Chakkar
after.
Sucker. Okay.
No, I co-wrote that video with him. So this was
you wrote
yeah,
Chakkar Sucker?
this was like,
Yeah.
but before that, he'd gone viral with his Sherlock.
Oh, yeah.
Sherlock and I
That's
think
when
Harry
he popped.
Potter.
I remember.
So he popped, and then like
Okay.
slowly, it was, essentially, I saw the network effect playing out in real
Okay.
time. So
Nice.
a bunch of these folk, they shared, and like a couple of my posts was featured on BuzzFeed later.
Oh, okay.
I jumped from like 5K to 7K in like a matter of days, and then 7K to 10K in a matter of a week or something.
Damn.
And funnily enough, this was also around the time where I was disillusioned with what I was doing. So I
Okay.
intentionally tanked my CA. I hope my mom doesn't watch this, but I intentionally tanked my CA entrance exam at that point. And I was like, you know what? I need to be in a place where I don't have a safety net for me to fall back on in case this fails. Because there was a point where I was strongly contemplating like leaving comedy.
Okay.
This was, say, Jan 2018, because a lot of things.
Why? What was the reason?
Let me tell you. So I clearly wasn't happy with what I was doing. Like I wasn't very interested in college. And
Which college were you in?
DCVS.
Oh, okay.
On top of it, I was in a place where, like I said, it was just a lot of angst and confusion that happens at that age, right? And I went to participate in IIT Madras's stand-up comedy, Sarang. And I didn't make it to the finals. I was like, I thought, okay, even if I don't win, at least I'll make it to the finals. And when I saw that I couldn't, I was like, fuck, man, what am I doing here? And then, so I decided, okay, let me go hit one open mic. One open mic. If it doesn't work, I'm just going to pick up my books. I'm going to study. I'm going to focus on that.
That was your litmus test. Which open mic was this?
This was in Ashwita Besnagar. So
Oh, yeah, the one by Evam.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I went, and like, funnily, I don't know what happened. In hindsight, I don't even know if it was a good thing or a bad thing. The audience was responsive. They actually liked it. I actually did a pretty good job that day.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, you know what, sign, and I'm going to focus on it. I didn't realize that Instagram was becoming, so my only goal was to post content that wasn't my stand-up video and get like just amass a following enough for me to sell tickets for my stand-up shows. That's, like the goal was simple, and that was how it started. And like once the followers started coming in, I started focusing a little more on creating content, doing something different.
The first one was just memes, right? Two-dimensional
it was
memes.
just memes, like just very relatable.
And did you actually stumble upon a few more concepts?
Like I just wanted to be relatable and all of that. And then like I thought, okay, talking about films might be a great idea. So I started posting I started writing.
Okay.
I started writing about films. I started posting reviews or like just film appreciation posts. It was. And so all of these things were working out, and I could see that different kinds of posts brought in different kinds of audience. And I was like, you know what? Let me make this a holistic thing. Side by side, I started doing shows. I think after maybe a year of not just hitting open mics and not getting any shows, August 2018 was when I got my first proper paid show. Right. So
and you sold out tickets for that show?
No, we didn't sell out. Obviously, we didn't sell out. I was performing it with a bunch of other comedians, and we had Ariva and Offro come in to do a separate track.
Where was this? What was this?
I forgot the name of the show. This happened in the Music Academy Mini Hall.
Oh.
It was for an organization called Blue Leaf, if I'm not wrong, but they wanted to essentially create political awareness among youngsters, college students, and school students, and all of that.
Okay.
This was a themed show
and they got Ariva to come and sing for political awareness.
Yeah.
Amazing. Great job, guys.
No, I mean, and trust me, man, like I think that was the day I was introduced to Ariva, and I was blown away by what he performed.
Ariva is awesome, yeah. I'm just saying he's like anti-politics as much as you could get.
This was about demonetization, right? So, you let Ariva on that stage, he went berserk. I was like, and like, funnily enough, there were like a couple of right-wing people in the audience, and I just wanted to look at their faces. So that happened, and then slowly, once people saw that, okay, so there was a phase where there were enough followers, part of the audience that knew that I was performing stand-up, and then after, say, the numbers, like after the numbers increased, people started recognizing, saying, okay, there's this guy, and he posts memes, and he also does stand-up. People started saying, okay, you know what? We need to get this guy to perform in our school or like in our college and all of that.
Okay.
So slowly that sort of had a other effect where I started getting lineup shows. Like even the small ones. I was just happy to do whatever it was because I just wanted to get to a place where I can keep performing and I can get to a place where I can perhaps pursue this full time.
Nice.
Right?
You're doing that right now too, right? You're getting regular gigs and that's what you're also keeping you busy.
I'm at a point where I want to be in control of how many gigs I get. Like I'm not actively looking out.
Okay.
And there are gigs that I say no to. There are gigs that I, like if I really if I like it enough, I'm like, you know what? Okay, let me go ahead and do this. I think it's about, for me, it was about having that kind of autonomy, And after a point, everybody reaches a saturation point, right? I think for me, that saturation point with content creation specifically happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. The point.
Yeah. Cool. I think we kind of covered your entire journey so far of how you went from your first stand-up comic appearance, your first show, all the way up to you now choosing, right? I think that is the holy grail, at least for starters, where you can say no to gigs that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome growth. Props to you for that. And you've also spoken about your Instagram journey, how you started off with on Facebook, and then you started building your own content, and how right now you are actually that I haven't heard. If we can talk about, which was your first 10K moment? Is it a different journey? Is it a different play? How does it work?
Oh, so 10K was something that happened when I was asleep. I basically was like, okay, this is growing at a pace where I didn't even like foresee this, right? Like I had no clue. At that point, okay, having 10K followers was like, okay, maybe or 1-2 years or under level up then okay, maybe I'll hit 10,000 followers then. And like when this happened, I was like, actually on some level, I was like, are you okay? Should I maybe back out now because I'm like, this is getting too real? Was one of my thoughts. So at that point, I was posting multiple times in a day.
Okay.
And I think I remember this because it was something that I was recounting with a friend very recently. So I posted like the last meme for the day, and then I went and I slept off. And then the next morning, and again, it wasn't anywhere close to 10K. There was at least like a 1,500 follower gap. And then the next morning, I wake up to see the number at like 10K, and I was like, what the fuck? How did this happen?
What was your first reaction? Is this a bug? Is someone pranking me? Is this real?
No, not really. When I saw that, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna believe this right now because yeah. So and then I'm like, holy shit! And back during this point of time, Instagram still had the swipe up link kind of a thing, and like you could get that only if you hit 10K followers.
Yeah.
So one thing that an acquaintance told me at that point was, you know what? Get to 10K. Once you get that swipe up link, you'll start making money out of your Instagram. And I assumed that it would be something like the YouTube ad program or the affiliate program, and then I later learned
something like that.
Sorry?
Is it anything like that?
No, it's
not.
It's nothing like that. I think it still functions on a. I mean, of course, they have introduced like stuff, but I haven't delved too deep into it.
Okay.
So to begin with, I was like, okay, now where's the money? And he's like, no, he's like, dumb fuck. You need to like brands will now approach you too. And funnily, the first people that I actually like was you were the second, like the InGen was the second like agency, for the lack of a better word, that approached me, and like Dunzo was my second campaign.
Oh shit.
And you guys, yeah, I remember. So that was something that
nice.
So slowly at that point, I think that was when the obsession sort of started, right? I'm like, oh fuck, I've done this. Now I'll do everything to retain this and like just keep going at it and like just keep growing, right?
That is something I genuinely want to learn, bro. How do you do that?
Not like me.
Super lazy.
Not like me. Let me tell you why. Because like I said, I was a teenager. Like that was all I was. Like I had the typical teenage attitude of, okay, now I am the king of the world. I can do. I'm an iconoclast. I'm a rebel. I am doing something unconventional.
I am maverick. I am new age. I am
exactly. And I think growing up with low self-esteem and like suddenly getting all that attention was something that I was both comfortable and uncomfortable with, right? I didn't like sort of acknowledge how it overwhelmed me because I'm like, yo, kedakkide vechupom அப்படின்ற மாதிரி. Now again, I kept growing like my Instagram, and through the year I started getting like, that was like again like the growth phase, right? I was doing small shows. I was getting like small paid gigs, like your 1,500s and 2,500s, and like I think the maximum I made at that point was like what, maybe 5K, and that included like a part was for the performance in itself, and like the other part was for promoting like the event on social media.
Okay.
So that was where it stood. And like come 2019, like the numbers just kept growing. And I think 2019 was when like I had enough followers for me to capitalize on all these huge events, right? My goal at that point was to get to first, okay, let's do 50K, right? And I was juggling these two at the same time. And like once, like, and like things just happened. Like for example, we had the IPL happen that year, and CSK was dominating, and like I had like the space
good enough content.
Yeah, I had the space to just go wild, and there was the Pray for Nesamani trend happened then.
Oh shit!
And that was when like newspapers started like covering.
Okay.
So
I just love trends like that, bro.
Exactly.
Whatever happened to those glory days, right? where for no reason, no rhyme, shit just happens. You know, we're like, why are we doing this? We don't know. It's
No,
fun.
but like
that's
it's just fun. Yeah, like
Yeah,
that's what it was. But I think it was around this time that the inkling of it not being fun started. In the sense that I was constantly pressured. I was like, and at that point, I wasn't thick-skinned enough to handle like the
Negative comments and
negative
shit.
comments and all of that.
What was your first negative comment? How did that make you feel?
I don't know, man. Like I don't see in hindsight. I don't even think it's something that now, like with where I am now,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen like stuff like people say some mean stuff, but most of the time I just find myself laughing at it.
Yeah,
I'm not even kidding. I'm just
yeah.
like now I'm saying this at like 24 on the words of 25, but back then I was just 20, 21, and
Mm-hmm.
I was still working on stuff. So this basically became like an escape for me, so that I don't have to deal with the shit that's going on in my life. That was how
Okay.
I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
So all these things happened. It hit, and like I hit 50K
Oh damn!
later that year. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
sweet,
later
sweet.
that year. I think within. So I think the last post that gave me that final boost was this emotional write up I posted about MS Dhoni
Oh,
after
okay.
his run out.
Okay.
When we got knocked out of the semi-finals.
Yeah.
And that for the first time I sort of reached the
Ambani,
Tamil Nadu
like,
mark and like went pan-Indian in Sonata, but like a lot of people from like different
Mhm.
different cities and all of that. So and that sort of gave me that push and I reached 50K. But once I reached that point, now the 10K and 50K had like very, very different reactions.
Okay.
Like everybody was like, oh fuck yeah, you've hit 50K and all of that. But I mean, granted, I was also going through like a sort of a personal crisis at that time with my mental health not being too great and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And once I hit 50K, it was just more like a momentary thing. I was like, okay, yeah, this happened. I'm like, yes, oh fuck, I need to celebrate and all of that. And I'm like, okay, now I got in here. Like, how does it make a difference? Like, what? Like, okay, a number on the screen that I look at, like for maybe 10 hours a day has increased. Now, what else is happening?
10 hours a day.
Just to.
Okay. Go. Just
General.
okay.
So I was like, okay, fuck. Now, what do I do after this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, now do I go into pursuing this and like pushing it to 100K? And at that point, I was just tired, man. Like that was when I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to
take a freaking break, bro.
Yeah, like I wanted a break from life. Like so, I actually that was when I signed up for like Vipassana and all of that.
You
like,
done Vipassana?
I quit on day 6 because
Oh shit, you done 6 days.
Yeah, I mean that again was 6 days without phone, without
Yeah.
and like that was the year I started smoking too, and like even
Okay.
that was sort of like pushing a boundary if you ask me. But and then I realized that I actually had to like my Instagram or even my stand-up career for that matter was not gonna save me or like was not gonna be of any help. Like, and I'm just like, this is just a plain distraction, and it's probably not gonna end too well if I continue going the way I was.
Mhm.
So I toned it back down. I took therapy a lot more seriously. I sort of introspected. I sort of changed things about the way I basically changed the way I looked at things. And around this time was when I started working for Red Bull in college. So that sort of gave me like a different perspective.
How did that work? Like, what is your requirement? What does it mean to be a campus ambassador or a brand? What is it called?
So it used to be now they call it student marketer. Back then it was called student brand manager.
Okay.
So essentially you like now, man, like I forgot the definition of the job, but essentially you serve as the face of the brand on campus.
Okay.
So you work the product into events
okay.
or
okay.
any relevant, so anything that any place where Red Bull might be of help.
Okay.
For example, if this is an engineering example, just to explain it, like, for example, there's a hackathon happening.
Mhm.
It's a 2-day hackathon, and like you need like the caffeine to sort of power through and like build a product.
Mm-hmm.
So and obviously Red Bull is a great presence there.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that, and like you had to identify and like you had to
Oh, so
get
you gotta place your stuff all over the place. Like any events, you gotta like, hey. Red
yeah,
Bull.
and like you
Okay.
get people to try the product out and all of that.
Nice.
That sort of until then I still held on to that belief that I'm like I am not someone that's going to be working, or I'm not someone that's going to be like a corporate slave or anything now. So but like working at Red Bull really gave me that perspective because I worked with a nice team, and like my boss at that point, my boss at Red Bull Chennai, his name is Sriram
Yeah.
Arvind, and
Mm-hmm.
I think talking to him and like looking at the way he functioned, and also I was also interning at Warhorse at the same time, and like looking at how these guys function, I thought, okay, maybe I should expand my views and not be like a little shit, which I was at
Not
that point.
everything is a corporate slave, bro. Sometimes it's just nice to work in certain places, right?
Exactly. So I was like, you know what, maybe I'll get a job. At that point, I stopped being concerned about my Instagram. I was like, you know what, whatever happens, let me just go with it.
Mhm.
Like if there's anything worth posting about, I will do it. Else, I'm not gonna dedicate my time and energy to the anticlimactic. When you ask, you expecting like a oh fuck story.
No,
I don't know.
I think this is a lot more sane. It makes
Yeah.
sense, bro. Where you're putting
Thankfully.
your efforts into something that's building a much larger picture too. It's
Exactly,
great.
exactly.
So, since we're talking about that, let's talk about your portfolio, rather your career.
Hmm.
I think what was your first job? Like had nothing to do with Instagram or anything like that. I mean, of course, job had to do with Instagram, but
I'd
not
say,
with your profile.
it was my stint at Warhorse, right? So I
Okay.
handled social media for them, and
Okay.
one of the things I love about being a part of an early stage startup is that you get to do so many things,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like you sort of figure out what works for you and what doesn't. So
Mhm.
at Warhorse, I used to TA on the classes, on like some of the classes that we took. I used to again like handle social media marketing and all of that, content creation for
Mhm.
the page. And on top of it, there was also, building courses, being a part of the
Curriculum.
curriculum,
Mm.
curriculum building. And like it was at Warhorse, our courses were story driven. So essentially, we built the story with which the kids learned, right?
Okay.
So a part of that included writing the stories, coming up with ideas for it. It was very creatively gratifying, the job,
Okay.
in every single way.
Mhm.
So that was my first job. I stuck with it for like a year and a half. After which I was like, okay, like we like everybody that joined, like we were like, what, maybe it's time for us to go different ways, and like we
And
had
that's
a
when you went to
conversation.
Root.
Oh yeah, so I left Warhorse, and again, that was when I was going through another major shitty mental health phase, right? So
Mhm.
at that point, I felt like I was paralyzed, and I was again the old confusion came back. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? And that was when I started getting gigs from Netflix and all of that. So it was a bunch of us. It was Arjun was there. Arjun was me. Arjun, you had
Kishan,
Kishin,
that Malachek, and
Nagma, Abhishek was there for an episode.
Hmm.
Nirmal was there for an episode. Satya had
Hmm.
flown down from Bangalore. I think having conversations with them sort of made me consider, okay, should I perhaps start taking my Instagram seriously again?
Hmm.
Right? Because okay, I'm getting to do all these things, and I contemplated it. But at this point, I was also, like I said, because of like the rough patch I was in, I was back in intense therapy and like doing a lot of journaling, a lot of self care, and all of that. And
Okay.
one day I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep at all, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I should write, and then in the process, I'll fall asleep or something of that sort. I ended up staying up that entire night, and I journaled. I practically got through half my journal, and I'm like, okay, this was 2021, so I turned 23 this year. And when I look back outside of the things that are, I mean, is it safe to say, is it okay to call like the Instagram following and all of that? I mean, I'm grateful for it. At that point in my
A
life, it didn't seem
burden?
substantial. You get what I'm saying?
Okay. It felt like it was a constant gnaw at the back of your head. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's great, but it's also calling you back to make sure it's still there. That kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so this is there, but how am I gonna stay relevant? Like, do I still want to
that's
be
what.
posting memes when I'm say 30?
Mhm.
Or what do I do with my life? And like, do I still want to be? Will I still enjoy creating content when I'm 30? What do I ideally want to be doing then? And that sort of put a lot of things into perspective. And another major thing that came into major factor that came into play there was the simple aspect of stability that comes with having a full-time job
Yeah, bro.
and
Yeah,
having
for
having
sure.
that.
You
So-
get that monthly paycheck and you feel
Yeah.
so much of peace of mind, right?
Yeah, exactly.
As much as people talk against it, it just gives you that peace of mind. And I can't deny against it for sure.
Yeah, that was when I think, one speech that I really loved. Steve Jobs is connect the dots, like the Stanford.
The round pegs and the square holes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that
Square
was
pegs and round holes. Oh, that's after
that
cancer?
no, that was the Apple ad campaign. This was his commencement address at Stanford in 2005, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
Right. So into the route, because a colleague of mine who knew that I was a former colleague again from Red Bull knew that I was into social media marketing, and they were looking for a social media marketer.
Mhm.
And they were like, this is what we're looking for. Like, why not give it a shot? And one side of my career that I haven't spoken too much about is perhaps wanting to be a writer.
Mhm.
But I had no idea how it went on. Like, I'm still trying to figure it out. And films have always been a passion, like both as a fan and like someone who likes the technical aspects of it. Like
Mhm.
so I thought maybe like stepping into the film industry was like good idea.
Mhm.
And at least
Yeah,
finding a
obviously.
place
That's
to
why
start.
Root made sense, I guess.
Yeah. And like it's not, it will be a proper full-time job. So like at home I won't face any opposition.
என்னடா பண்றவன் வாழ்க்கையை
Like
வச்சுக்கிட்டு.
it's like a proper full-time job. It's just that I can get like a foot in and like understand how it works.
Did you?
To a certain extent, yes. I think
Okay.
I got access to a lot of information that I was otherwise very oblivious about.
Mhm.
So
And how does that work though? That's something I'm curious about. So you naturally are a content creator for yourself, right? You make
Yeah.
memes. So that when you're working for yourself by yourself, it's a whole different thing. You have
Yeah.
no restrictions.
Yeah.
But when you're working for a company which
Hmm.
has an agenda, which has do's and don'ts,
Hmm.
how does your brain work at that point? Is it restrictive or is it actually more liberating because you have a particular agenda?
It is liberating.
Okay.
Funnily enough, doing that for so long and doing that obsessively all those years sort of paid off over here.
Oh, so this is like just like, yeah, whatever. Come on. Throw the next one at me. Yo, here, take it. Go. சிவாஜி 2 சைன் போடுற மாதிரி
yeah. So and like I think the route was a great experience. When I look back and connect the dots, like I said, like being a content creator on Instagram and a stand-up comedian got me into Red Bull first as an opinion leader,
yeah.
and then I was like, you know what, I want to work for the company. I want to become a student brand manager as well. Too many complaints because number one, I got to do a job. Number two, it kept me busy and I wasn't thinking of anything else. So that was enough. It was where I set my standard.
Okay.
And I was like, let me focus on now figuring out what I want to do.
Did you manage to meet Vijay? Did that ever happen? I'm sure you get asked this a lot, but we got to know, bro.
I mean, all I'm gonna say is I saw him once.
You did see him once, huh?
Yeah, I think as someone who's been a huge fan since I saw him once and like
you saw him walking by like
no, I actually like we got to like just say hi and all of that.
Nice.
I froze, man. Like
how did that feel?
Like I said, I froze. I couldn't get a word. I'm like so, yeah,
Nice.
like that. And like I mean that was another brilliant experience I had. I got to work with, you know, like
Names like
stars, you know,
yeah.
names like
Keerthi Suresh. You work closely with her as well?
Yeah.
Wow, nice.
And like it was very, very, very like I think, like I said, I would have never gotten the chance to observe a national award winner up close.
How
like,
did you
understand
feel? What was the difference?
what is the difference in the sense?
Like if I didn't get that opportunity, so if I have to hear it from you, how is it? Like, what are the learning points? What are the glass breaking moments? What is the surprising points?
Number one, it's a reality check because everybody is like, okay, actors, they act in movies, they do their thing, they have, and then they're like, yeah, obviously they live very comfortable lives and all of that. But watching that up close, watching just how hard she worked was like, honestly, it was a reality check because for anybody who wants to work in the industry, like they have to be aware of what the job actually takes. And looking at that, I was like, damn. Now, like I said, a lot of hard work goes into making movies.
Cool.
Because I've seen, there have been times where I've been on set, like not of movies, but like, you know, first assignment was for a music video that we shot, and I was surprised by the way things worked. I was like, first time I got to see a large scale set up close, and
Okay.
I think that put a lot of things for me into perspective. I'm like, okay, this is what it takes, and for you, if you have to break into the industry, this is like something that you need to. And like I asked myself a question, I'm like, do you have what it takes? I'm like, not now for sure. Right?
That's a wise answer. Not now.
Not now.
Is a
Yeah,
wise
exactly.
answer.
Because by that point I was like, okay, let's not be impulsive and say never. Let's say not now. I think, but eventually the long commute started having its effects on my health. You know, my back was fucked.
Okay.
Yeah, so
you were
like
you were riding every day down there.
Ola
Wow.
bikes and like
Oh,
metro
fuck.
and all of
Okay.
that, and like there was a point where I was actually taken to the hospital and all of that. So I'm like, okay, now this has to.
It's time to
Yeah, it's time to sort of like look at a difference or like figure something out. But I'm like, at that point I decided that okay, I've learned whatever I've learned, and like for me to, I also needed a little bit of time to recover, like properly heal. Because like mental health, it obviously takes it time to heal and all of that, but physical health, you need to rest. Like you need to get down and rest, motherfucker.
You gotta love how your body is like, டேய் உட்காரு
exactly.
ஓவரா ஆடுனல கொஞ்ச நேரம் மூடிட்டு படு அதுக்கப்புறம்
அதேதான். Like everybody around me, they used to ask me, I'm like, என்ன மச்சான் அவ்வளவு தூரம் போறேன் and all that. But like I said, because like just the excitement of getting to work with just the excitement of getting to work with, you know, like
names that
actors,
you just mentioned. Yeah.
Like you know, like actors, both upcoming and like established stars, was something that I really cherished, and I was like, you know, it's worth it, was what I thought until then. And then once my body gave in, I was like, ayyo,
இனிமேல் ஒண்ணும் பண்ண முடியாது ஜி.
yeah, because
மூடிட்டு.
there was a point where my back was stiff.
Oh.
You know, like used to, like just lying down would hurt. Like that's how bad it got.
Shit.
Sad. I was very upset about leaving, but I was like, you know what? I really cherish, because working with Jagdish sir was honestly been one of the most defining experiences of my life, I'd say. Like, because I used to constantly bug him with questions, and like he always took the time to answer. He always took the time to sit down and answer every single question I had, be it about production or like I used to ask for all these, like, you know, anecdotes about like what happened, sir. For example, like random, sir, master படத்துல எந்த அளவுக்குனா, சார் மாஸ்டர் படத்துல அந்த ஜேடி பாட்டில் என்ன சார் ஆச்சு, அதுக்கப்புறம் அந்த அளவுக்குலாம் போய் கேள்வி கேட்டிருக்கேன். Like he was always like, you know, he used to like just
actually என்னதான் ஆச்சு அந்த ஜேடி பாட்டிலுக்கு
அது மறந்துருச்சு actually.
Right.
But like yeah, so it was very fun, like, and the team there again, like it's a very small unit, but it's a unit that works extremely hard. It's a very like I made very good friends there, and Like we got to work on like some really great stuff. So we did like a small campaign for the Thalapathy 29 campaign, which was just completed 29 years.
Oh, years. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and so basically it was like just a bunch of posts, and then like we made this video that went viral. Right, it was played in theaters and all of that, and like so I think I can look back and say, hey, wow, I was a part of that. You know,
Yeah, bro. I think that's the kind of job satisfaction you get from something like this.
and like I said, when I look back, I'm like I get to say, hey, these are things that I have seen.
Yeah. Awesome. So we've spoken quite a lot. We've spoken about your job too. You spoke about Root and stuff. But I am very curious. You've done, obviously, Root also is very much related to your space, to content creation. You love cinema. It all makes sense. But right now, off late, you've been working in an AI-based startup, and you are now working in a SaaS startup. What caused that switch? Why into tech, and how is it right now?
Because it was the most logical thing I could think of. For example, like I mean, to explain the
Yes, very logical. From film, SaaS.
I realized that you probably don't have enough context.
Yeah.
So I've always been interested in entrepreneurship. Like I mentioned earlier that I watched The Social Network. So that was the film that sort of got me into it. I'm like, oh damn, this is
I want to have a car that says I'm CEO, bitch.
Bitch. Yeah,
cool.
exactly.
Okay.
So I actually wrote like on an A4 sheet when I was in like 8th grade and like stuck it on my door. I was just like, I'm CEO. And then
there's no bitch here because mommy will come.
Yeah. Okay. I'm CEO, buddy. So
that's the most Indianized version of that.
Yeah, and I think started out of interest, like just simply because I liked it. Simply because I liked it, I started following startups. You know, something that still fascinates me. It was something that I just kept following, but again, because of my earlier sort of preconceived notion that like I shouldn't be working at a job and all of that, I just never really got to explore that. I was like, okay, someday in the future, I will maybe get like a bunch of guys together and create a company. Was what was on my mind. And right out of the route, like I said, on one side, I'm like, okay, I quit my job. Number one, I need enough money to sustain myself until my next job. And I was like, சரி முதுகு வலிக்குது ஆனா இருந்தாலும் கொஞ்சம் மூடிட்டு ஒரு 2-3 ஷோ பண்ணாதான் காசு வரும்னு சொல்லிட்டு I went. It was kind of hard physically for me to like go through it, but and like that sort of fucked me up even further. And so there was this one night where I was like, okay, what kind of jobs do I want? And obviously I was looking at agencies, marketing agencies, you know, everything creative, more B2C and all of that. And I realized, you know, there is this one part of my life that I don't really think of anymore. And I was like, no, why not just get over my number one imposter syndrome of whether or not I'll be able to go in and do it. And why not just give B2B a shot? Like, I know I have no B2B experience. I know I've followed companies. I understand what SaaS is. I understand what a tech company is. I understand the structure, and I understand how things work. But is that enough was a question I had, because I don't have a technical background either. I'm not an engineer. I did commerce. So I was like, you know what, fuck it. So I started applying, and Mastery then happened. And I realized, okay, content marketing within like B2B is a great place for me to be in.
How does that even work? Content marketing within B2B? Like, what are the kind of platforms you put up content on?
So essentially on the website.
Okay.
And you write SEO blogs that you host on your website. And it's about creating content and like distributing it to drive traffic organically.
So you have like a newsletter going on?
Yeah.
Stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Newsletter and all of that. So I just took a leap of faith, and Mastery then I applied, and I was like, I got in, and I was like, you know what? Okay, maybe I should. And once I got the offer letter, I'm like, okay, now what do I do? It's like I had a ticking time bomb in my hand, and I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead. And
how is it there? Like, how is it working in a tech-based place, doing something totally out of your comfort zone?
It wasn't, I think I realized much later that it wasn't necessarily out of my comfort zone. It was just perhaps very, like, I think the only thing that you can call it is different, right? Like, obviously, when you go into a startup, there's a lot more structure. There's a lot more work-life balance. There's a well-defined role. And at that point in my life, I'm like, okay, now I'd come to a lot of realizations personally, which sort of made me feel like this is the best decision for me.
Yeah, you got to have a balance, bro. I think at some point we all just realize that, hey, my job is not my life. You don't have to, like, you know, just give up your back, your mental health, all of this for just another company.
Or rather use use your job as a distraction. I think.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, utilize your time wisely is the best way to put it. Don't like overburn yourself and then get to a point where you don't like what you're doing, right? That's just
exactly. And at this point, I reached this level because the one thing that I will forever be grateful to my experience at the Root was it got me to realize and actually start acting on one thing that I'd always wanted to do, which is to write screenplays, screenwriting. And I distinctly remember once, I think it was a conversation that happened with Keerthi ma'am, right? We were just talking about something, and suddenly something struck me, and and because we generally we did, like, in the office we used to discuss films, and it was a conversation about a film, and she said something that struck me, and like Jug sir also, like all of them, they had like this. They would never say, "Hey, you are a social media manager. Focus on what you're doing." You could talk about anything. You could talk about, like, he'll suddenly ask you. Like, he'll tell me, there have been times where he'll pull me up and ask, "Bro, okay, what do you think about this?" and all of that, right? So it was very stimulating in that way, where I was able to understand, and like, okay, it was also validation coming in from like people that are like, the who's who of the industry. So I thought,
Yeah.
Perhaps this is the right time and the best place to start. So I started writing screenplays there, and come this time, when I quit and like when I recovered a little, I thought, okay, I'm never gonna say never to anything, which included content creation and stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
Where until then, my attitude towards content was very different, and after that, I was like, okay, now I can do it, and in a detached manner
Mm-hmm.
that will help me, and not like I can still take the benefits and not be affected by it. That's
Fair
how I
enough.
saw it, right?
Okay.
And I was like, eventually at some point I'm gonna have to come back to doing stand-up, because
You're still doing stand-up, right?
I am.
When
In
was the
fact,
last show?
my last show was earlier this month, first
Oh,
June.
nice. Where?
Yeah.
For what?
It was at this bar called Euphoria in T Nagar.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's been talking about this bar recently. I
Yeah.
think we're doing a Tigom there as well. Shit.
Oh damn!
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it is a nice
It's
place.
a nice place, huh?
Yeah.
Sweet.
So I realized, okay, what I need in my life is, by working at a full-time job, I've understood the stability part of it. I know how important it is to my life. Next comes balance. Now, how do I maintain this balance? And I thought, okay, now I'll focus on my work. If I go into office at 10,
You
and I
don't
leave-
think of anything outside of that. When you're at your job, you're just doing your job, right? You don't sit and write stand up. You don't sit and think about memes to put up. None of that. Or does that happen?
I mean,
too?
memes maybe not. Stand up at times, whenever I've had free time or whatever
Okay,
it is.
it
And,
does
like,
happen too.
other stuff, yeah. Whenever, like, but it's not. But my primary focus was always
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
was
of
doing.
course, yeah.
But once I leave that building, I'm like, okay, now
I'm
what
free.
next? Now what next? Now, do I go spend time with my friends, or do I go
Huh.
think of stuff, like, or do I go? Now, one good thing about working in like an area like Abhinamapuram, Alvapet, is that there's a dearth of places around you.
Yeah.
So I would just go sit in like a cafe and write.
Yeah, talk to me about that, bro. How do you guys write for stand up? I've been trying so hard. I don't know, for the life of me, I just can't sit down and write a joke, It's so hard. I know, I mean, I'm not being cocky here. I know if I have a good set of jokes and script, I can deliver. I'm good with the performance, but fucking writing those things, I think that's the hardest part, and that's the most rewarding part too. So, do you have a process? Do you have like a way you go about it, a method? I don't know. I'm just trying to.
I do. I think it's not just about writing stand up. It's about writing in general, right? Because it's at the end of the day, even today at Spenflow, writing is what I do. Writing is the primary function of my job.
Yeah.
I am a content strategist.
Mhm.
Like, I need to write. I need to get those words out. I don't care if I'm in a writer's block or in a creative block. If I
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
contribute.
So,
And-
how does it happen? What's your process?
So, for example, let me break it down into different
Mhm.
things, right? So, for in B2B marketing,
Mhm.
what I did at Mass Street and what I'm currently doing at Spenflow.
Mhm.
Now, at Spenflow, like, we are sticklers for process. I think it's partly one of the reasons why we are probably one of the fastest growing startups in Chennai, if not the country, right?
Mhm.
I would even go ahead and say, if not the world. But one thing is that we're sticklers for process, and there's always a brief, there's always a structure. And within the structure, you are given a target audience, you're given the content, category of the content, and this is what. So you have so much information.
Who gives all this information?
So currently, it's my manager, and like
Okay.
it's a obviously like we decide on topics, and like we
Okay, and so there is like a set pathway.
yeah. So there is a process,
Mhm.
and I go in and I'm like, okay, now I do my research. I read, and like ChatGPT is a great teacher now. I read blogs, I read about the subject in itself, and then I figure out an angle. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm gonna talk about. So I'm gonna start with this, and I'm gonna close the loop on that with this.
Mhm.
So point A to point B, and what are the most relevant points that I need to mention, right? So if I'm starting at point A and if I'm ending at point B, what is important for the reader to know? So I identify that, and it's just like a thread. It's like basically like charting out a map, and then you can get from point A to point B with
Okay.
everything that, because I know who's gonna read it, right? And I think it's also up to you as a writer to figure out what information is relevant based on, like, geopolitical.
That I kind of get, writing for or B2B or like even
Yeah.
for a brand. My bigger question is, how do you write for stand up?
Stand up. I would say I was getting to that, right?
Okay.
Now, this if you flip the switch,
Mm-hmm.
when in stand-up, I decide who my audience is.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You have a target audience. For me, I largely bring it down to people of Chennai, people who speak Tamil.
Mm.
Right?
Of course.
Then I go into, okay, this is my target audience. And
Mhm.
unlike like a B2B article, I don't have anybody telling me, okay, this is what we're going to write. I'm like, I have a target audience. I know that this is the people that I'm catering to.
Yeah.
Now I get ideas like randomly, just things that I think of, like things which I find funny.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I do is, again, because I've worked in AI and all of that,
Yeah.
data is something I value a lot. So whenever I watch reels, or whenever I sometimes look at my own insights on Instagram, and I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, people have reacted to this.
Okay.
Say perhaps a joke about anxiety, or perhaps a joke about depression, or like,
Okay.
or memes about your parents, whatever it
Mhm.
is. I'm like, okay, this has
Resonates a
demand.
lot
This
more.
resonates with so many people. So that sort of gives me insights into what I can write about.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
Right? So
Mhm.
that's how I decide on what I want to write about.
Okay.
And like I'm like, okay, this is all information. That's the research part of the job
Mhm.
of writing for stand-up.
Okay.
And then randomly I just think of a line. I'm like, okay, what are the things that I am going through on an everyday basis? What are things that, again, people are talking to me about? And I'm like, okay, how does this work? And I'm like, what is my opinion on it?
Okay.
With like, because writing stand-up today, perhaps I mean I wouldn't go ahead and call it difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but it's more unique. You cannot do the bare minimum and get away with, right? You have to, because people are constantly they're being
Consuming content.
consuming,
like
yeah.
nothing, Right.
It's a constant source of one joke after another, be it cringe, whatever you call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are an audience to stuff. It's very, very important for you to be your own person. Now,
Hmm.
before I used to be like in my earlier days, perhaps even when I started, with my page and I got my pop and all of that.
Hmm.
I used to be like, okay, what can I say on stage that will make the audience like me? But now I'm more in a space where, okay, I have these thoughts. It's my job to make it funny. It's my job to make you laugh. Right?
That's what I'm still curious about.
Hmm.
What is that secret equation? What is the anatomy of a joke? I'm sure you've figured out that somewhere in your brain that
I mean,
it's either a backflip or it's either a shocking image or it's giving something familiar and then totally flipping it at the end. Is there like a formula you have?
there is a I don't have a formula per se. There is a basic structure which is setup and punchline, which you would have heard
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
And there are joke structures, which again are larger writing structures as well.
Okay.
You have your rule of three, and you have your
What is rule of three?
rule of three is essentially you give them two examples,
Mm-hmm.
and with the third example,
It's something totally unthought of.
Yeah.
Okay.
right? So one of my earliest rule of three jokes was, I used to be the kid that you would watch a movie and like decide my ambition based on that. So I watched Kaka Kaka. I wanted to become a police officer. I watched Either I wanted to become a politician, and I watched Ghazini, and I'm like, oh fuck, I forgot. Like that's an example of a rule of three joke.
Fair
So
enough, yeah.
and you have all these structures, but I do not want to bog myself down with all of that. And it's about going down and like I think one major thing I learned on my hiatus was understanding why something is funny, and not necessarily limited to stand-up. Also movies.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you take a funny film like Panchatandaram.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why is this situation so funny?
Yeah.
And that's where I discovered the concept of a subtext.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now I can say a joke. I can like write like a perfect setup and perfect punchline, and our audience will find it funny.
Mm-hmm.
But are they connecting with? And what am I contributing to this? Because anybody can do that. If you're someone that if somebody who perhaps can write better than me and is probably more exposed to like pop culture and like every other subject in the world
Mm-hmm.
can come in, I'll be replaced. Now, what am I contributing was something I asked myself. Second, when it comes to writing, I'm constantly noting down like these ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the basic function that I use to write comedy is always starts from an emotion, because laughter at the end of the day is an emotional reaction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, am I angry? Am I frustrated? Like, usually a negative emotion too. Am I
Yeah,
scared?
yeah.
Am I okay? What kind of trouble am I in?
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes into, can I make any observation about this? So I actually have like a template on Notion where I brainstorm.
Oh wow.
So I have, okay, what are the thoughts? Like what are common names associated with this? What are behaviors associated with this? What
Wow.
are common actions and like opinions associated with this?
Okay.
So when I land on something that I know I want to talk about, that's how I go about it. When I don't have any jokes as such, because some ideas come to you as a joke, they come to you funny. So there you don't need to like do much effort, do much work. But now over here, I sort of brainstorm completely, and then I try to figure out, the point A and point B thing that I told you about earlier. I try to figure out, okay, where am I starting? Where am I ending?
Oh, okay.
Do I have an arc here? So if I'm starting off by saying, hey, smoking sucks.
Okay.
At the end of it, do I still hold that opinion,
Okay.
right? Do I still hold that? Like, am I still saying smoking sucks?
Mhm.
If I haven't changed, why haven't I changed? That will give me the body of my...
Oh, so you decide the start and the end. And then you build
kind
the
of, yeah,
middle.
because it has to be like it has to have like a thread, right?
Okay.
You don't want yourself losing your audience's attention.
Hmm.
Perhaps if it's something like also I'm working on a set about like your parents beating their children.
Mhm.
Like that has an arc where I start off in a place where டேய் இதெல்லாம் என்னடா கம்ப்ளைண்ட் பண்றீங்க, நாங்கலாம் எப்படி இருந்தோம் தெரியுமா, எங்க அப்பாலாம் என்ன எப்படி பெல்ட் வச்சு. I end on a note where I'm like, oh fuck, this is systemic and it's fucked up.
Yeah.
ஏன்னா இப்படி வீட்ல அடி வாங்கினதான் போய் அப்புறம் அர்ஜுன் ரெட்டியா போய் அவன் கேர்ள் ஃப்ரெண்ட் அடிப்பான். That's the kind of angle I take. ஐயோ சொல்லிட்டேனே, சரி பரவாயில்ல, it's okay. Now within this I work in like everything else, so I need to get from point A to point B, and the body will justify why I am there.
Okay.
Right?
Like some examples for your body would be maybe similar anecdotes or like
like exaggeration, like anecdotes, for instance.
Okay.
Anecdotes, like I can take something that actually happened and I can exaggerate it.
Okay.
Now this I think I don't mind saying this, like this one joke that I've been thinking about. நானும் எங்க அம்மாவும் வந்து like we used to go அப்பா ஷாப்பிங் வர மாட்டாரு, நானும் எங்க அம்மாவும் வந்து என்னெல்லாம் தேவையோ அதெல்லாம் வாங்க போவோம். அப்பா வர மாட்டாரு, ஷூ வாங்க போவோம், செருப்பு சைஸ் என்னன்னு கேட்பாங்க, குரு கணத்து காமி அப்படின்னு வாங்க, like to measure. Something like that.
Nice.
Right? An exaggeration.
Yeah, that's actually pretty damn smart. So how does your brain work, dude? How did it come up with that? It's one of those things that just came, right?
Like understanding how my brain worked would solve 90% of my problems. But like fuck, I don't know.
Nice.
I think it's just the imagery, right? And like and it's also asking questions. Now this is something that I spoke like 4 years ago. I spoke to someone who knew about Tyagarajan Kumaraja's writing process, right? And we were talking about something like he was just telling me about we were having a conversation Super Deluxe, and he said, okay, so now like take the Samantha Fahad storyline.
Yeah.
Now where does it start? It starts with a wife cheating on her husband. Now what are all the possible options? Like first, okay, Fahad would come.
Husband finds out.
Yeah, okay, that becomes a fight. Number 2, Fahad perhaps comes in and like he sees and like in a fit of rage he kills.
Yeah.
Okay, and then or Fahad comes in, Samantha tries to get away with it, and like somehow the conflict comes from so you work through all the possibilities, rule out all the cliches, and like okay, what would be absolutely fucked up in this situation? What is the worst thing, or like what is the funniest thing that could happen? Fahad walks in, he finds a dead guy, and like his wife is telling that, like imagine being in that situation, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what makes that.
Yeah, for sure.
So you start off with a conflict like that. So I think that's what I do. I rule out. I actually take the effort to eliminate the low hanging. Like normally it's gonna be like same joke being written back there. More like I would have probably cracked a very simple joke like அப்பாவோட செருப்பு, like அவ்வளவுதான், like பிஞ்சு கொத்து பரோட்டாக்கு பதிலா கொத்து செருப்பு எங்க வீட்ல இருக்கும்.
Okay.
Or like he used to like half his salary used to go into just buying shoes and the like something very simple. Like there was no like the same thing, like same insight would have translated to something like that. But now I'm like
you cancel.
Okay, how do I cancel get to that point where I'm like, oh damn.
Yeah.
What would be absolutely fucked up in this situation? Kannatha Kami. Like where just the image of that is very funny to me, right?
It's so dark and it's so surprisingly dark as well, right? So that's why it's funny.
Exactly. And it's not dark in a sense where it's insensitive.
Yeah. It's just
I like talking about dark subjects, but not like the jokes in itself aren't dark at all. Right? For instance, another joke about this, like I start this set on this note where I say, I hate watching Hollywood movies about serial killers and all of that, or any documentary about serial killers, because they're like, yeah, okay, they delve into the flashback of this guy, and they're like school shooters specifically.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, okay, this dude was physically abused when he was a kid, and I'm like, hey, நீ இதுக்கெல்லாம் நீ போய் சுட்டுட்டு இருந்தானா, இங்க ஸ்கூல்ல தண்ணி டேங்க்ல எல்லாம் தண்ணி இருக்காதா, ரத்தம் தானா இருக்கும். புரியுது?
School would have been PUBG Warzone, bro.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like a bunch of guys. It's like you come in, you're like, it's basically like அவனுக்கு வந்து ஆர்மில பார்டர்ல சோல்ஜர் சண்டை போட்டுருக்கானா, இங்க ஸ்கூலுக்கு வந்து பாருங்க சார் அப்படின்ற மாதிரி. It's like, okay, for them it's a traumatizing, life-changing event. For us it's a habit.
It's a Tuesday, bro.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday. From there I go to like that point, right? So essentially it's about understanding how you can differentiate yourself, because with things like comedy, you're obviously a lot of people are going to be talking about the same things. For engineering பத்தி ஜோக் அடிக்காத ஸ்டாண்ட் அப் கமெடியன் இருந்திருக்கவே மாட்டான். புரியுதுல?
Yeah, but the amount of times I've heard that joke.
Oh my god, yeah, exactly.
My name is Rahul Subramani. I am from Sri Venkateswara College of Engineering. I've heard it 20,000 times, Rahul. Please.
Yeah. So it's about, that's where your originality sort of comes into place. I think after say 7 years of performing, I can say that it's only now in a post hiatus, okay, understanding what kind of a person I am, kind of a phase where I can, it's only now that I feel properly confident as a comedian. It wasn't when my Instagram was popping and I was selling tickets or anything of that sort.
Yeah.
Because now when I go on stage, that my last show was a testament to that, because of how I felt purely. Because before then I used to be like, oh fuck, I need the audience to like me and all of that. Now this time I was just like, I was drinking, I had a glass of whiskey in my hand, and I was like,
on stage?
Yeah, actually.
Damn, bro.
So I'm like, you know what?
Damn, respect. Come on.
So I'm like, you know what, man? What is the worst that could happen? It's like, you've been doing this for enough time. If they don't like you, fuck it. You'll learn. You'll grow. That's it. Right?
Nice.
And that is so liberating. And I feel like that has been one of my biggest learnings, right? Like for you, you can be an artist. You can do whatever you want to do. Be it a content creator, be it an artist, be it a musician, whatever you want.
Having the freedom to either succeed or fail, I think that's one of the biggest
number one.
things.
Number two is that this tortured artist trope.
Oh, bro, yeah.
This, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna channel all my pain and trauma. Like, that's a great thing. But just do it in a healthy way. Don't use that as a solution. That's
not the only solution.
Exactly.
Rather. You know, a lot of people assume if you want to be great, you have to be fucking under that street lamp 24 hours a day and walk with no fucking shoes all the way to Ananagar. I'm like, bro, please.
Imtiaz, like, you know, Imtiaz, he has his line in Rockstar where he says, "Tote hue dil se hi sangeet nikalta hai," where basically you need to, like, it's only from a broken heart that, you know, music flows out of. I'm like, yeah, great. I mean, your emotions, like I said, emotions are like a strong foundation for me to like perform stand-up, or like be it if I'm writing a scene. You know, even now, it's sometimes if I'm screenwriting, like even now, I'm a very auditory writer. For instance, I always have music running in the background, like music associated with the scene. For example, if it's something about a breakup, like it's a song like perhaps Manipaya, or it's a sad song like that, or if it's about unrequited love, it's, you know, one of the many Pradeep Kumar songs, whatever it is. So even now, there are times where I find myself being absolutely, I can feel myself shattering from the inside when I'm writing like tough scenes, right? But I do not use that as an excuse. Like, I don't use art as an excuse for me to not deal with this. I think that was the biggest change for me. I think that sort of changed my trajectory. I think I would say, like, because I feel like working on your mental health, however you choose to do it, is
paramount.
Paramount. It's mandatory.
So I mean, you just spoke about mental health, and I think I would want to address the elephant in the room. I think it's public information at this point where you had tried to commit suicide. So obviously it put all
trigger
of us
warnings, by the way.
Yeah, for sure, guys. Trigger warnings, and it did put a lot of us into a shock. Someone like me included too. I usually am like a fucking, you know, I don't give two shits about anything that happens in the world, but I genuinely, because I knew you too, man, and I saw this and I'm like, what? Guru? I thought he's always chill, man. He's always putting out funny stuff. I thought he's completely fine. And that was the kind of stupid assumption that I along with everyone else had. And when I saw this and I saw the picture as well, I'm like, holy shit, man, I hope he's fine. So, I mean, if you don't mind, what happened? So,
I mean, see, I don't want to dive into the details
of it. I don't mean what happened, just like
how
you recovered, rather.
I think, see, number one, it's எனக்கு தான் வாயில சனின்னு சொல்ற மாதிரி. I mean, perhaps I should have taken like a few extra seconds to pause and like breathe. And I honestly, I think as negative as it was, that sort of was my mom actually called it that. She called it a rebirth. You know, I mean, that's my mother, but I'm like, okay, now how do I make sense of it? And from that point on was when I sort of decided that, okay, I need to undergo like a metamorphosis or a change, a major change. Because until then, like I mentioned before, I was sort of looking at external sources as distractions, ointments for like just a wound that I had. I never really sat down and acknowledged. Of course, and I had been in therapy at that point, but I feel like when things got tough, I always went for the easiest escape, the easiest option. You know, I'm feeling anxious today. I'm not going to acknowledge. I'm not even going to think about why I'm anxious. Even if I knew, I'm like, yeah, okay, this is happening. Might as well just go have a drink or like smoke like some 2 cigarettes back to back, and I'm good. So that was largely my attitude. And I was like, yeah, why do I do this? Because I have stuff to do. I need to create content, or I need to go work. I need to balance all of these things that I put on myself. Nobody was forcing me to do that, right?
Yeah.
And after that point, like in the middle of a pandemic, or rather we were just recovering from a pandemic, and I was like, to put it simply, it was rock bottom. Okay, I can either force myself to rather convince myself that things are all better. And I'm like, yeah, I survived, so I'm okay. Now I'm back and things are fine. I can either do that, or I can either get down to the bottom of it and like
really dig out
the dirt. I started taking therapy a lot more seriously after that, because one thing about therapy is that it's a two-sided effort. You can go, it's not like you go see a doctor, he gives you a tablet. You go see a therapist, you have conversations, and then you go back, you do your own work.
How did therapy help you?
I would say, like I said, it helped me. Number one, it's always good to have someone to talk to. Right? And on top of it, it's good to have a professional that knows why the mind, like you are the way you are, why the mind is the way it is.
Yeah.
Tell you, because humans are like in that sense, humans are a paradox, right? We're very similar, but also very different.
Mm-hmm.
So having that sort of a relationship where my therapist who understood me told me like, okay, this is why this is happening. This is why you do what you do. And this is what perhaps you could do. And these are the things that you can do to handle yourself when things get tough. I used to, like, there have been points where I used to have multiple anxiety attacks in a day, right? Now, like today, I cannot even remember the last time I had an anxiety, right?
Nice, dude. Nice.
Now, like there's this Michael Jordan meme where it's like, which says I used to pray for times like this. Like that was pretty much where it was. Like if you go back and like tell my 23-year-old self that, hey, there's going to be a point like just 2 years down the line where you're going to be completely comfortable talking about this, and your mental health would have significantly improved. Like he would have been like, oh, fuck off, bro. I mean, hopefully, yeah, but not so soon, right?
Yeah. I think that is the fucking silver, not even silver lining, bro. That's like the blowing fucking lighthouse for everyone right there. Everyone, when they're in that fucking pit, right? You just can't see. You think there's nothing beyond this.
Exactly.
But here you are telling that old self that
Exactly.
no, fuck that, there is. Just get past it if you can, please.
That's one of my biggest regrets. I'm not someone that regrets a lot of things, but this still remains one of my biggest regrets because not so soon, right?
Yeah.
Healthier decisions, perhaps not drinking so much, not smoking so much, and it all happens slowly. It all happened
Yeah.
in, like, I let it, basically I gave myself the space and time to heal and evolve and grow. Thing that changed during that phase was I developed like a strong sense of self-awareness, and that automatically started contributing to my self-esteem. I feel like self-awareness is not just about knowing who you are, it's also about acknowledging your own flaws, acknowledging your own red flags, and like learning how to deal with it and owning up to your mistakes, like going ahead and saying sorry and making amends and all of that. Before that, I had a very different view on it. I'm like, okay, I'm the victim here. Everybody around me is like hurting me. I am hurting. I have these issues, so I'm the victim. But after that, I was like, fuck you, dude. You're an entitled little bitch. That's what you are. Obviously, you also have to be kind to yourself, but you also need to acknowledge where you're falling behind, and you're gonna have to say, hey, come on, wipe your chin and get shit done.
Yeah, that's about it, bro. Just get shit done. Just keep swimming, man. That's about it, I guess.
And it was a slow process. First, I was like, okay, let me deal with like all these issues, and then last year was largely about, okay, I'm going through cycles. What are the other issues that I need to address? There were pockets of great times last year where I was like, I have nothing to worry about. I'm largely doing great. But like, I think that also helped me acknowledge and be grateful for everything that I've had. It was very easy for me to go from being, oh damn, yeah, I have a community on Instagram, people following me and liking my work. It took me like mere seconds for me to switch to, what, fuck this, I don't want this anymore. But that's not healthy at all. Why would you put in effort and throw something away? And
this sounds like a kid that's really spoiled, right? Like, you really want this toy, you get it, oh fuck it now. I'm
exactly
done. Yeah.
Exactly. And I had my reasons for like switching. Like, also had to do with, number one, I'm like, oh fuck, why is my engagement rate so low? And like, why are people hating on me unnecessarily when I haven't done anything? But now I'm like, okay, this is a part and parcel of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't reflect who you are or what. And you know who you are, you know what you're doing, you know why you're doing it, and you know it's good for you.
That was pretty insightful, bro.
Was it?
It was actually nice. I think, to be honest, I was genuinely slightly dreading the mental health session because I thought it'll be like a bummer, and I'm one guy who'll just run away from that like a dumbass. But then it was actually inspiring to say anything. I think this part of your conversation, you felt a lot more at peace.
Yeah.
And that's super. I really didn't expect that. And that's awesome. I think I'm glad that you are at the space where you can just like talk about it, and you want to talk about it also. Just to, like, get other people to hear your story and tell them, guys, just chill out. The guy that you're right now worrying so much, he's not going to be the same guy. The guy in the future is going to come and tell you to just, yo, this is so much
calm
better.
the fuck down.
Yeah, exactly. Sweet, bro. Fuck. I think we've yapped on for a good 2.5 hours now. I think this is a new record.
Didn't feel like it.
Yeah, I really didn't feel like it, bro. I think this is the longest podcast that has happened on TIGPODS so far.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, it didn't feel like it. I'm from looking at the time, it's 9. I'm like, fuck.
Oh.
We started. Wow. So it was great because I think I saw from your perspective how it is to go from 200 followers all the way up to, what do you know, 60,000 followers on Instagram, and juggling between a stand-up career, a content creator, a CA that you dropped, as well as being content creator for other brands, and going from like film to like tech to SaaS. it's quite a journey, bro. It like really threw a lot of perspective. But I think my favorite portion was definitely where you broke down the process of writing jokes, bro. That was so inspiring for me. I think right after this, I'm just gonna like sit down and make my own Notion template. I'm just gonna like sit and write like fucking 10 jokes. I don't care. I'll just be like, just do it. That's it. I'm gonna do that. And it was really, I think you just like, it was such a breeze when you just like explained the process and gave examples for them, right? It just stuck. I'm like, holy shit, yeah, that makes sense. So that was great too. And of course, like it feels like the mental health talk as well was just like dessert at the end of it. You know, you just speak about all of it happened. And I also did notice you were skirting on the topic throughout your journey, and I could see how that was a very big deal. It was a huge part of your whole journey, right? And now that you've acknowledged it and you've given it its fair due diligence and you are so comfortable with it, it's really refreshing to see. So thanks, man. Thanks for this entire journey. Thank you for sharing.
And I'm so glad that we finally got to do something after years of talking about it. So,
I swear to God, right? Just today, I saw this meme. It was really sad. It's like, I think adulting is where you just keep meeting your friends and keep saying, Machan, let's do something. And then you look back and it's 6 months down, right? I think that's how it is right here. But hey, we actually did it. So screw you, meme. We got the better of you. It took a good 2 years, but it's okay. It's fine. So sweet, bro. Thank you so much. I think we'll do something soon again. Like, let's do a show or something as well.
Definitely.
It sounds fun. Cool, bro.
Nah, bro.
I will sign out, guys. And yeah, I will also have some signing off notes. Thank you for watching this episode with us. I think I've covered what all we've learned. There's a lot in store, and my team is lined up a really exciting bunch of people right after this. So I really wish that you guys are staying tuned. Stay excited. Please share these episodes with a lot of friends, with a lot of people who you would find it useful. Because genuinely, that is something that is very much required for content in general. Because it's really noisy nowadays, guys. And I'm not saying this too much blasted as one broadcast everybody. Just send it to those few people who you think would really benefit from this. Like, for example, this episode, I'm sure you'll have friends who are trying to be a content creator on Instagram. You'll have friends who make memes. You'll have friends who are trying to get into stand-up, or who are content strategists for different brands. So I feel they will really benefit a lot from this episode. So yeah, please join us on this journey. I thank you all for being a part of it so far. This is TIGPODS. This is Jaytesh signing off alongside Guru Nicketen, aka Nicketronics. Cool, guys. Thank you.